Getting quality referrals is a wonderful thing. We all could use more of those. But getting referrals is also hard and sporadic. Giving referrals can also be difficult. If you get a prospect from way out of state, you may not have someone readily available to refer them to. Gabriel Stiritz of Lexamica solved both problems. Tune into this episode and hear him explain how he solved the problem incredibly eloquently and how he helps lawyers and law firm owners make more revenue. Enjoy the episode. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have a remarkable guest with me here today. Gabriel Stiritz from Lexamica solved not one, but two major problems that lawyers have that I haven't seen a solution like this before. I know something similar exists, but I haven't seen one as good as this one. Gabriel, why don't you talk about it? I love it. First time I saw it 6 months ago, I was like, wow, why didn't I come up with this?
Yeah, first of all, Sasha, thanks for having me on the podcast today. Really excited to chat with you and talk about where law is and where we see things. It's a great time to be in the industry generally. Really high level what I do now, and I've done a number of things, but the current thing is helping law firms with referrals. So start to finish, full cycle referrals. So finding the right lawyer for the claims that you won't be handling in-house, tracking those claims, matching them, and making sure that you're paid on referral cases. So it's something that the entire industry does and has done for a very long time on the contingency side. And when I came into the legal space in 2019, encountered a myriad of workflows around this, none of them working very well. Sticky notes, spreadsheets, faxes, emails, and it was a hodgepodge. And so as a guy, I have spent my entire career building technology systems, processes to help businesses and organizations run more smoothly. And so it was something we encountered internally at the law firm that I was running at the time, and realized that this was not just something that we needed to solve for ourselves, but could help the whole industry run better if we created a product that could connect law firms and help them to do their referral business more transparently and more effectively and more scalably than it was currently happening.
Yeah, I love it. Here's how I view this problem. So for those who do not know, I've been operating a marketing company for the last 7.5 years. And what we very often see, once your marketing starts working, you're going to start getting a share of inquiries from prospective clients who are qualified, but you don't want them. For one reason or another, you don't want them. They may be from another state. You don't practice law there. They may be a smaller case value, and you don't want that. A plethora of reasons why you may not want to handle that case, but there could be 1,000 lawyers who would be lining up and happy to take that case from you and pay you a fee upon successful completion, if this is a contingency-based case. And what we see is that some of our clients have really struggled with this issue, because now they need to go and find somebody out of state. If it was within state, they're like, no problem. We know so many people, but out of state, a problem. And then they're reluctant. What about the reputation? Too much work. Lexamica solves it all. It's a very transparent platform. I checked it out. It works beautifully. It connects both parties. and creates additional revenue opportunities for both parties. That's why I thought it was just such a cool solution, and it's so elegant.
Well, I really appreciate it, Sasha. And you've seen how law firms, that when you're helping them to grow as a marketer, they're getting inquiries. The better your brand is, the more inquiries you're
100%.
getting. But at the same time, it's impossible to create a brand that is perfectly laser focused on just the cases you want where you want them. And so then the question becomes, you're almost a victim of your own success. You start getting inquiries that you actually don't want to handle in house, but still have massive amounts of value. And so the more that you become successful as a brand, you shouldn't be taking your foot off the gas of your brand. The brand is the whole thing. Everything else comes because you have a good brand that you've built working with your marketer. You should be figuring out ways to create value for yourself and for clients that are calling you. One of the things that is really exciting to me is, yes, you're making money off of these claims, but your goal as a lawyer is to help people. That's what your ethical obligation is broadly, and then specifically that your goal should be to help people when they call in. And so rather than saying, hey, I can't help you, it's a true win-win. You're able to say, let me connect you with the best attorney, and you're fee sharing on those claims. And so you're generating better return on your ad spend.
Yep.
And especially when you're in either like a place where you mentioned kind of cross-state things. If you're in East Coast, if you're near the border of a state, if you have a brand that spans multiple states, the bigger you are, the easier it is to wind up with these claims that you really have a ton of value, but you have to unlock that.
Yep, 100%. I think it's a win-win-win. So it's a win for the client because you help them find the attorney. It's a win for you, and it's a win for that attorney. So it's truly a triple win. I just love it how smoothly and elegantly it solves this problem. And it's interesting for those who may not have considered this before, but we have clients who fully fund all of their marketing and advertising with that side revenue that's coming from referred out cases. In fact, for some of our larger clients, it is a revenue center, meaning they don't just pay for their marketing and advertising, they make more money than they're putting in by handing out referrals. It's a wild thing. Without a platform like Lexamica, referrals are quite a bit harder. Again, sticky notes, Excel spreadsheets, etc. And sometimes looking for the right attorney to refer this out to, which Lexamica, again, so elegantly just solves all of that. How did you come up with
Yeah.
this idea? I know that you were a CFO, but de facto like more of a chief operating officer at one of the largest, if I'm not mistaken, hour and wage law firms, Stanford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wage and hour practice, mostly federal claims all over the country. And it really did come from a problem that we faced in house, which is that we partnered with large MVA personal injury firms that had these large brands advertising on TV, radio, billboard, and sometimes smaller ones, state level. And because you're out there all the time, you get all of these different claims. So we were the recipient of employment claims from people all over the country. So we would partner with the law firms, and the back and forth, the workflow was one, remarkably consistent. Every single law firm handles referrals the same way. Once they start to do them, you have a list of the partners that you want to work with, and that list is rank sorted by who is the best firm that I'm aware of to send this case to. So best meaning good communication, fast communication. They sign cases up. They don't just turn them all down, and then they get results, right? So it's actually not that complicated. You have this list of firms and you sort it by the firms that you want to have first priority for your cases. And then once you know what that is, when a case comes in, it needs to go out to that firm absolutely as fast as possible, because everyone knows that speed to lead is the most important thing. When a call comes in, you sign it on your first call. If you can't, then you're absolutely getting back to that person as quickly as possible. And then after the case is out, you want updates. You want, did my partner Jimmy sign this case, or did he turn it down because there wasn't a claim? And then if he signed it, I wanted to see the retainer, and then I want updates on the case, and then I want to get paid. So that whole life cycle is just remarkably consistent, and we were on the receiving end of it. So I was designing systems in-house to automate the process of giving referral updates quickly to other law firms, and then saw that this wasn't just something that applied to us. This was the whole industry was dealing with the same issue. So I just love to solve for workflow issues and try to do that very, very effectively. And so we just started with the premise of, how do we take every single piece of manual work from this process and remove it so that lawyers can focus on the two things that lawyers are really, really good at in this industry: marketing for cases and going and getting money for their clients. Everything else should be minimized in terms of the cost, right? So this is one of those things where you just want to do it really, really efficiently, and you want to optimize it, and then let lawyers who are good at marketing do that, and lawyers that are good at getting returns for their clients do that, and then bring them together on one platform.
Makes perfect sense. If I capture this correctly, you're not a technologist, you're a problem solver. Like you created the product idea, which is Lexamica. You said workflow optimization, and did you have somebody else build it for you?
Yeah, I'm not an engineer. We have a team of engineers who build this, and my place is to find the problems that need to be solved and bring those to the table. Now, fortunately, we have an incredible team who we have product, we have engineers, we have customer success, and it's a whole team effort. Early days, it was me and my co-founder. He was writing code, and I was throwing ideas in the hopper for how do we solve these problems.
So you like solving problems, and you've spent a number of years operating a law firm. And if I remember correctly, you helped that law firm grow quite dramatically over the years that you were there. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We scaled from about 13 people to 38 people at the peak. And we built a lot of systems and processes. So we really didn't add lawyers to that headcount. It was staff and other pieces of a team to run the whole thing as a business.
Got it. So from where you're sitting today, this is a couple of years out after you left the law firm. From where you're sitting today, what other major workflow problems do you see law firms having that could be solved with technology?
It's a really interesting question. There are very few that I see not being able to be touched at all. I think that the ones that are the most accessible to technology on principle are the ones that are the most repetitive and have the most repeatables and have steps that are the same every time. So client communication is one. We're seeing a lot around document drafting. That's another. And I think that what's interesting to me, so client communication, document drafting, vendor interactions, so service of process, medical record retrieval, medical record summarization, things where you can chunk them down into discrete tasks, and then each of those tasks can be automated. That's what technology is good at, right? And then you have AI, which is allowing for, I would say, like the 0 to 70 or 0 to 80% on a lot of things, or maybe like the 20 to 80%. So it's like we have raw information here. We need a finished demand that's sent out to an insurance adjuster. AI can do a really great job in the middle of that, taking raw material and creating an almost finished or finished product. So I think those things have changed dramatically over the past few years. I'm also really interested, and then AI, voice AI for intake. That's the thing. Like this year is where we're seeing a ton of change around voice AI for intake. We're seeing a lot of products coming to market. There's new companies coming in. There's existing companies that are adding that on. So I think voice intake is the big thing that's about to get solved. So I would say by the end of this year, you'll have early adopters running their intake entirely on voice AI. And I would say next year, it's going to be midstream, mainstream adoption. And it's going to move really quickly because once you reach parity with a call center, there's absolutely no reason not to immediately switch over because you're reducing costs and you're getting better consistency. So I think that's the big thing right now. And then I'm not sure when this is going to happen. I'm really curious to see when we start to see technology solutions that are starting to pull multiple things together. And that would be like in the AI sense, that's kind of like agentic AI where you have multiple agents that are being managed by one piece of technology, another agent. But, when are we going to see initial intake is done and then technology that's taking that and then immediately summarizing that into the first demand letter, or, so that's the interstitial pieces being connected by technology. Really excited to see companies starting to take pieces of that and connecting them up, because right now we're still solving for individual pieces of workflow, right? Like Supio, Eve, EvenUp, Hona, Case Status, Foundation AI, all of these companies are solving for one piece of workflow.
Yep,
No
not
one is
integrated.
building, no one's building the integration layer to pull it all together so it can be fully automated.
Soon. Let me translate some of the things that you said to those people who are not swimming in technology every day, which I do not, but I'm deep enough there to know what the things that you were talking about are. So AI-based intake means that you will no longer, 9 out of 10 cases, at some point in not distant future, you will no longer need to have a human being doing intake. It sounds absolutely wild, but it's absolutely coming. We're recording this in June of 2025. This is going to air toward the end of July of 2025. If you're watching this summer of 2026, you already know what this is, but in July of 2025, you probably still don't. You don't know that this is coming, but there's going to be a massive cost reduction coming your way in the form of replacing basically the people who are on the phone answering initial questions, taking down information, passing down that information to your attorneys. It's
And
going
in
to
some
happen.
jurisdictions where it's allowed, I'm talking to companies now that are starting to integrate the e-sign component. So if that's a qualified claim, AI is sending out that contract for signature, it knows when it's signed,
Yeah,
and is doing one call closes on the cases. We're not
yeah,
quite there yet. I
yeah.
think right now they're having decently the conversion that I'm seeing AI able to do right now is to get like a consult booked, which doesn't work for personal injury quite yet,
Mhm.
right? Because you want a one call close to retainer.
Right.
The e-sign integration is tricky, but I do think by the end of the year we'll see that as well.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this July, August, September of 2025, you think that this is just wild and you're not going to replace your highly trained intake people who have empathy for the prospective client when they call. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard them. Those AI agents who are answering the phone that you pay $0 an hour for, they have that empathy. They really do. It's a code, but it sounds just like a human being. Your prospective client will not be able to tell the difference. But I can tell you firsthand, our receptionist, who doesn't do intake, but our receptionist takes some sick time off. And sometimes she has to go use a restroom. And sometimes something will happen to her machine and she will not hear or she will not sound the right way. Things will go badly from time to time. The AI receptionist, it just works. So I think that what's going to happen is first there will be a hard drive to reduce costs across law firms. It's going to happen. And those who reduce their costs, they will be able to put more money into making more money, marketing and advertising. And those who don't will be left just unforgivably behind. It's going to happen. It's going to happen very fast.
Sasha, the thing about intake that is interesting as a problem to be solved for is that in the personal injury space, it's such a clear finish line. If you can have an AI agent that can sign 92% of qualified claims on the first call, there's nothing else that matters because that's the entire finish line. And so, unlike
Yep.
other things, even like a demand where it's like, you know, longer time horizons, unclear exactly, what a great demand versus an okay demand is, it's a harder product to build currently, but the actual objective of intake is incredibly clear. And so I think once we see the benchmarks being hit, I think the transition will be very fast and very final in our space, except for weird regulatory things where you have to offer to have an attorney speak to the client
Mhm.
before you sign the client, those types of things. But like as far as the actual problem goes, once it's solved, it's solved and
Yeah.
it's just a single number.
Yeah. So we are looking at those solutions for our company.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we have not found yet, but I'm sure it already exists, and my executive assistant is doing that research as I assigned it just this past few days ago. We're looking for an AI receptionist service that's actually going to plug into our phone system and learn what it is that we say, what it is that they say, what it is that we say, what it is that they say. And on the intake side, the way that it would look would be as following. It would listen to all of the conversations, hear everything the prospective clients say, hear everything that your intake people say, and they would compare it to the conversion rate, determine which of these conversations are most successful, and the difference between successful conversations and loser conversations. And then it's just going to be perfect.
Sasha, is that in the context of qualifying claims, or is that for you talking to clients of your marketing firm?
For any service business, it's not going to matter
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
service businesses. We have prospective clients calling us, marketing company. Lawyers have prospective clients calling them, law firms. Service business, it's a service business. There's a conversation to be had before a decision is made.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a, it's a lot
Absolutely.
of Q&A.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, as the context windows get longer on these models, you can load more and more of that business context in. I mean, I'm not using real-time voice, but I'm using Claude loaded in with our support documentations, our pitch deck, our internal information, my bio, all of our terms and conditions, all of our sales material for Lexamica. All of that's in my Claude project. And so anytime I want to chat, Claude knows more about the company than anyone, sometimes even including myself, because it has that context already built in. And so when you pair that with voice, like you said, that Q&A starts to solve for itself too.
Yeah, folks,
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and there's no latency. If you bring on a
Mhm.
new receptionist, a new intake specialist, how long do you have to spend training them? If you need to scale out your call center to 40 people today and then 10 people tomorrow, you're not paying a dime over what you actually needed for the demand, and it's already cheaper. It's just the economics of it are pretty brutal when you start to look at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of law firm owners, just like any other type of business owner, entrepreneur, nice, warm people. There will be some hard decisions that they will have to make, letting go some of their staff, because if they don't, that retention is going to cost you. You're not going to be competitive. I think what may happen in the next 2-3 years is that the cost of doing law is going to decrease dramatically. And those competitors who will be the early adapters and slash their costs sooner, they will drive those prices down, thus squeezing you out of business. It's
Yeah,
crazy, but it's going to happen.
it's a bit of to rock in a hard place for a lot of law firms in the personal injury space if they're mid to high end of the market, because you're getting cost pressure because it's becoming more competitive to market, right? You've got all of these big PE firms coming in, you've got big brands coming in, expanding nationally. So that's a cost pressure. And then the way right now you can really adapt to that is by reducing costs, because technology is decreasing costs. But eventually, the costs can only decrease so much while the competition can increase with no ceiling. So I think over the next couple of years, law firms are going to, one, technology adoption is going to be table stakes just to avoid the competitive pressures over here to retain your margins. And then once that pressure has essentially been driven out on the cost side, it's unclear to me exactly how law firms will continue to operate with the margins they have. Although I think, I trust that people are creative and will find ways of doing business that we haven't even thought of right now.
Yeah. I think solutions will definitely be created, but in the longer term, 5-10 year time horizon, I think the demand for a legal profession is going to be much smaller because AI can solve a lot of problems that a lawyer would solve up until recently, and it's
Yeah.
going to increase. Thus, it's becoming ever more so important to just do really great marketing to land the cases that you can. Because again, I think like the field with it's now nearly 1.4 million lawyers practicing law in this country, I think that's going to shrink, and the shrinkage could be very significant in the next 5 to 10 years.
And Sasha, the one thing that I've been telling everyone is I think the safest bet to make right now is on your brand. And I've talked to the largest personal injury firms in the country about this, the big guys, the Morgans and Morgans and Lerner and Rose, all the way to the Brian and Ben Glasses. Everyone understands, if you're sophisticated in the space, you need to build a brand that has trust with a community of people, because almost everything else is being commoditized right now. Service is being commoditized. Access to technology is commoditized. Costs are coming down. New product. What's the one thing that someone can't come in and steal from you tomorrow? It's the trust that you have with people. And so investing in a brand is, I think, way more important than it's ever been. When people were building brands in the past, because you had to have a brand to go market on television. Now it's you have to have a brand so that you're differentiated from the 5 non-branded competitors that just moved into your market and are dumping money in on PPC and LSAs to try to compete with you.
Yeah, this is actually a really hard concept to wrap your mind around when you operate a smaller law firm or any other smaller business, because to build that brand awareness in the marketplace and recognition and some loyalty, potentially some loyalty, or at least some preference toward your brand, takes quite a bit of money. So, overwhelming majority of folks who listen and watch this podcast are, let's say, between $500,000 in revenue and maybe $10 million in revenue. And when you operate, let's say, $2 or $3 million law firm, which is already a little bit above average in size, think about like branding marketing. How much can they really invest into this? You can't, right? There's not very much money to go around to invest into branding. And when we talk about branding, by the way, for those who may not know what branding is, so I currently live in Chicago, moving from here in a week to Florida. In Florida, it's all Morgan and Morgan. Like you cannot drive on the highway for more than 5-7 miles without seeing Morgan's face.
Thought you were going to say 5 or 7 seconds, but
Or
either
maybe
way.
5 to 7 seconds, right? In Chicago, it's Lerner and Rowe. You can't go anywhere 3, 4, 5 miles without seeing Glenn, and I forget his partner's name, right? Those two smiley dudes are just everywhere, right? So this is insane advertising spend. When I say insane, like I know what they're spending. In Chicago, I can tell you it's a little over $1 million a month, right? So if you operate a $2-3 million law firm, you don't think about it that way, but you can also do branding in your local community, whether you practice criminal defense, personal injury, family law. There are so many opportunities to do branding on a smaller scale. Totally possible,
Absolutely.
but definitely harder to gain that wide recognition, wide brand awareness because you are smaller. But it's
But
definitely worth it.
I mean, Sasha, feel free to disagree with me. You're the expert. The advice that I would give people is always find a pool that's small enough that whatever your budget is, you can make an impact in that pool. So go deep before you go wide, whether it's a community, whether it's a demographic alignment, whether it's finding a small enough geographic area. You're not going to be able to outspend people that are operating at the city. Maybe, I mean, Chicago is a large metro, or Illinois, or all of Florida. But look, Dan Newland built a 300 something million dollar law firm in Orlando, outspending Morgan and Morgan in Orlando because Morgan went national, right? So even at that scale, you can see that if you can narrow down and get niche, then you can always build out from a niche, but you can't go broad and then go down. That does
Impossible.
not work.
It doesn't
And
work.
I've never seen that work.
Yeah, no, it never works. It is absolutely impractical and impossible. But I think the point that we're trying to make here is that you have to invest into your marketing, and you have to ruthlessly cut your costs. Do it
Absolutely.
today, tomorrow, because a year from now it will be.
It's not getting better. I'll tell you
It's not
that
getting
much.
better.
It's
It's not
only
getting
going to
better.
be more of the
Yeah,
same. And the
yeah.
lawyers that are investing in their brands right now, branded search, SEO, those are the ones who are going to outlast the people right now who are doing the lead buys. It's a hard truth. And I have people that I know who are building businesses on lead buys. Those leads are a commodity that are going to get more and more expensive. The only thing you can control is the thing that's not as
Not necessarily.
competitive. No. Tell me.
Not necessarily.
I
So
love disagreement. What
yeah.
am I?
So let me paint you a picture, but I have to take you back about 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So late 2000s, real estate is booming before the crash. Everyone is doing great. I was in the mortgage business. I had a very sizable wholesale operation, which we were gearing up for the crash. The reason why we were gearing it up for crash, my partner and I saw the writing on the wall years before it happened, because we looked at underwriters, we looked at banks, and they would be accepting absolute pathetic junk of mortgage paper. We're like, it's going to crash. We don't know when, but it's going to crash. So when it started crashing past February of 2008, what started happening is a lot of industry players started closing their doors, but demand was still there. So out of the ashes, there were a few entities, my first company included, that just went, and it grew exponentially, absolutely exponentially, in a very, very rapid rate. So what usually happens during crashes, if you're well positioned to bring in the business. And that's why I'm so sold on marketing and branding. Lead acquisition through every channel that is viable and cost effective is because if you're well positioned for the crash, what happens is your competitors that are not well positioned for the crash are not going to survive the crash. And as they go out of business, as long as demand is still there, you're going to attract that demand at a much lower cost. But before that happens, you need to keep on growing and position yourself and strengthening your balance sheet, which is basically the amount of liquid assets that you have in the business that will allow you to operate through some of the difficult times, which could be quarter, 2, 3. Like the Great Recession, I think it lasted for something like 7 quarters, give or take, 19 months. Is that 7 quarters? Yeah, 7 quarters, give or take. So if you can do that, then you are going to be able to get leads cheaper. You're going to acquire cases for lower cost. You just have to be able to persevere, to weather the storm. But for that, you have to do the things that were already above mentioned. But yes, cost of lead over time will decrease. I believe that. I've seen it. This is just how it works. Like once supply goes down, and supply will go down in the legal field. It will happen. It will happen. There will be
Sasha,
just less
I love
demand.
the story. I
Yeah.
love the story. I didn't go through, I'm going to date myself here, but I was entering college in 07, 08. So I didn't live, especially not from a business perspective, through that last cycle. And I think anyone who has gone through that .com era, you have perspective and experience that's really valuable. I love hearing from
Yeah,
people who have weathered those storms and what it took to do that.
I entered college right around the time, which you're not going to remember, of the Asian market crisis to 1997, 98. And by the way, so I grew up in Soviet Union. I saw the collapse of that country. So that was my first like, wow, that can happen. Then
Hmm.
97, 98, stock markets were brutalized a little bit because of the Asian crisis. I was a finance major at University of Chicago, University of Illinois, Chicago. And I was like, oh, that can happen. And then there was a dot-com bubble that bursted in 2001, 2. And I was like, oh, that can happen. And then there was 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I always play very defensively because I have seen like 4 major crashes. But I also like look at the examples from those crashes. There were always opportunities. Well, like half of the industry can be wiped out, but those who remain standing, because they didn't get killed, they became stronger.
Some of the
And
biggest companies we have today came
yeah,
out of the .com
yeah,
bust, not the
yeah,
bubble. Almost no companies survived that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good point. And I do, yeah, that's really good context for how
Hmm.
law firms should be thinking, because we are about to go through an era of potential contraction. Either way, it's going to be very competitive. So how do you play defensively? Uh,
100%. And let me give you
that's
some examples.
Please, yeah.
Mr. or Mrs. Lawyer, as you're watching this, and you may be thinking, this is not going to happen to me. So we have a business advisor. We have multiple business advisors. This guy, he's really bright. He's got a cease and desist letter. And he was like usually I would reach out to my very expensive lawyer, $600 an hour, send him the letter. He would review the letter, get on a call with me, decide what we're going to do, that he's going to execute on it, and I pay him for whatever time. This time, I took a picture with my phone, uploaded it into ChatGPT, asked ChatGPT, explain to me in non-legal terms, what does this mean, and tell me what I should do. He had ChatGPT write a response letter. He sent it to that attorney, and he was done with the whole thing in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
He's like, I estimate that this would have taken 2 hours with my $600 an hour attorney. Now, this is a sophisticated person. A less sophisticated person, I love my partner, my business partner. He's a great guy. He's pretty smart. Not as sophisticated as John, our advisor. Still sophisticated. He was like, I have 2 little kids. I have a business, some assets. I need to get an estate plan. He and I are talking about, he's like, should I reach out to an attorney or do it myself with ChatGPT? I'm like, reach out to an attorney. He's like, I'll give it a stab with ChatGPT. He shows me that thing. Oh, it's 95, 98% done.
It's
So
crazy. It's
So
crazy.
anything that can be done with Q&A and basic analysis, I think it will be outsourced to AI in the coming future. Nothing that requires to court can be outsourced to AI.
Yeah.
But if it's just like QA, here's a prescription for the problem, chances are there will be fewer people. It will not go down to zero. It almost never does, but there will be fewer people who will be like, yes, I want to spend thousands of dollars instead of 20 minutes talking to ChatGPT. There will
Yeah.
always be people who are like, I want to pay someone. This feels way more comfortable. So I don't think that this industry is getting pulverized, but demand will fall, supply will fall dramatically because it takes a certain level of demand to stay in the industry. And you have to make certain number of dollars per year to say, like, I want to continue on this journey.
Mm.
But I think like negative news that attorneys are getting replaced by AI is going to prevent some younger people who would otherwise go to law school from going to law school. The supply will be diminished of new attorneys. Some older attorneys will retire. And some of the ones that are practicing law right now will go and start doing something else because they'll be like, I could survive on $110,000 a year, but I can't survive on 40.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
it's interesting. The one thing that I'll be curious to see how it affects is you have a cost structure gut, right? Totally changes. Contingency lawyers don't operate on an hourly basis. So I think that it's I'll be curious to see what happens. Do some contingency lawyers come in and offer a smaller percentage? Because I don't know that, well, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Sasha. Do you think that that consumers of personal injury law firms who are essentially getting their service for free up front, how cost conscious are they? Because I don't see
not very
personal
cost
injury law
conscious.
firms competing on that. So it is interesting because like I think the cost structure for PI will last a lot longer than the hourly ones where you're competing directly minute by minute against ChatGPT. That's not really the same for PI.
It's not. It's not. But I think they're going to start competing on fees because there's very little differentiation between PI law firms. Everyone works for free, which is for contingency, right?
Right.
Or on contingency. But like how do you differentiate other than $3 billion recovered, $900 million recovered? So
Yeah.
the largest, the biggest smile. Like what else do you do? At some point, it's like hey, I'll take less, and
I
then
mean, that is
somebody
the
else will be
question.
like, yeah, I'll take less.
But here's my thing is like the only ones that say they'll take less to me, it damages their brand because they get perceived as just cut rate attorneys who aren't good. I don't know.
Mm,
Like I'm you don't think that's true?
not when the bigger guys start doing that.
Mm.
That it will
I
happen.
haven't seen any of the big ones. Have you
Not
seen any
yet.
big ones?
I
Okay.
know, but I think it's going to happen. There will be downward pressure on their prices. It almost not certain, but it's a very high probability because the cost of providing service is going to continue going down. It's just going to happen. So I've had a couple of times on this podcast an amazing guy, Louis Scott. He took his law firm from 5 million to 50 million in like 6.5 years. And then he was like, I'm not going to practice law anymore. I'm going to teach other attorneys how to do this, what I have done. He shared his numbers. He's very public about it. So without AI, practically no AI, their cost of service was 37%.
Mm-hmm.
All in. All in. With that cost structure, by the way, for those who don't understand what that means that every attorney, every paralegal, everyone who touched a file, a case, all of that cost 37% of every dollar that the case brought in. Most law firms operate around 50, 60%. So they just optimize the shit out of their processes. Very efficient system, super efficient. Plenty of people, very efficient production process. What that allowed them to do was continuously funnel 25% of their revenue into marketing and advertising. What that allowed them to do was to go from 5 million to 50 million in 6.5 years. Because they were like the biggest as percentage of their revenue spender or investor into their own growth. Marketing and advertising. And by the way, they would adjust their marketing and advertising spend on quarterly basis. Next
Mm.
quarter, we added $1 million in revenue on top of what we did last year. We're putting another $250,000 in marketing and advertising. So their growth curve was like this. And for those who are listening but cannot see it, like I'm showing something that's like close to 90 degrees. It was
Yeah.
nearly like just perfect, like run up.
Yeah. That's incredibly fast scale.
Yeah,
Especially, I
very,
mean,
very fast scale.
and for those of you who haven't grown that fast, like that means you're constantly hiring, just constantly. You're hiring, you're adding, everything is always changing. Like you look back 2 quarters and you're like, well, the company is just not the same company. That's a very difficult thing to do consistently 100%. Over time.
He and his former partner are just amazing operators.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I've never grown a business that fast. I can tell you 25% a year is very easy to do, and you will double the size of your business every 3 years if you do 25%. If you do anything that's significantly higher than 25%, it will be hard, and I do not advocate for that unless you're a great business operator or want to become a great business operator, because that will test you and test your ability to hire great people who will help you grow quite a bit.
Absolutely. Sasha, I really appreciate you having me on today. This has been wonderful.
Pleasure. Gabriel, likewise. Love having you on. Thanks so much for the insights, and thank you for building that platform. I think that hopefully through this podcast, more people will learn about it. I disclose, you pay me 0 commissions. I just saw it and I fell in love with it, and I'm like, I can't believe that it's only been around for 1.5 years. That should have been around for much longer. It's just such a great idea and such an eloquent idea. Somebody should have come up with it sooner, but fortunately you did, and it's out there. Check out lexamica.com.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Thanks for having me today.
Pleasure. Thanks.